The global arms race for Bitcoin is about to take off. Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund just bought $436 million worth of Bitcoin in Q1. What's crazy is that this is just 10% of 1% of all of the assets that they have under management. Can you imagine what would happen if they had a 2 or 5% allocation to Bitcoin?
I also think that people don't have typically adequate amount of gold in their portfolio. In other words, gold, if you didn't have a view of the market, like the gold market, it's a very effective diversifier under the other portfolio, because when bad times come, gold is a very effective diversifier. So I think that having something in the vicinity of 10% or maybe a little more, 10 to 15% in the portfolio is worth giving some thought to. And when I say gold, some people might say digital currency and so on. I own some digital currency. I own some Bitcoin too. But in other words, debt is money and money is debt. And we have a problem. We have a supply-demand problem with it. And so a good diversifier for a typical portfolio is that.
You realize how little Bitcoin this actually is when you see that the state of Wisconsin owns $321 million worth of Bitcoin. The world's biggest Bitcoiner in Michael Saylor was meeting with President Bukele of El Salvador just a few days ago. What happens when the United States gets on board with Bitcoin?
It's very scarce. There's a fixed amount. Everybody in the world is starting to want this stuff. We went from being persona non grata by the administration to in control, not just liked, but in control. And that's powerful. And when the world sees that the U.S. is embracing this, then you get a lot of that game theory, and you'll see other nation states and country, and companies and municipalities clamor to get this. And it kind of starts a little bit of an arms race of, folks around the world trying to accumulate Bitcoin.
The thesis for Bitcoin becoming the new oil is playing out as expected.
My sort of base case right now is that Bitcoin is the new oil. And the reason the Trump administration is so interested in this is I think they see exactly what Treasury and Paul Ryan are talking about, and that they're going to use Bitcoin like they did to oil back in 73, 74, which is, yes, the U.S. absolutely has a debt problem. Even Treasury's admitting it now. Even the Fed's admitting it now. Everyone knows it. And it's very acute. And we need balance sheet desperately. We need balance sheet anywhere that is not Fed balance sheet. And so we need a way to weaken the dollar while strengthening the dollar system. Mm-hmm. And you look at this and you go, gosh, this checks all the boxes. If we inflate the heck out of Bitcoin, you're going to increase stable coins. You're going to increase stable coin demand for T-bills. What that will do, because Bitcoin is a global asset, is it will draw in dollars from around the world.
You probably don't remember this, but in 1973, the United States government increased the price of oil by 400% to wipe out its debts and stimulate a new economy. And Bitcoin looks poised to follow in its footsteps. Today, we look at the implications of nation-state adoption of Bitcoin and Bitcoin becoming the new oil. You might want to stick around. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. At the Bitcoin Minute Conference, Prince Philip of Serbia predicted that nation states were already buying Bitcoin behind closed doors.
Bitcoin adoption comes in many forms, from just mining to store of value to medium exchange. I think the one people are really interested in would be in the next El Salvador. El Salvador was an outlier. I think we may get a surprise this coming year, hopefully, but we're going to see mining adoption is ever increasing. That is at a nation state level, that's happening all the time. It's happening in secret, it's happening in open. And the next one that's people talking about right now is strategic reserves, so SOVs, store of value. That is already happening behind closed doors, or it will start to happen in the open. When it starts to happen in the open, then that's when the whole game theoretic ripple effects of it will start to take off.
Turns out that he was right. And at that same Bitcoin conference, the Middle East region announced that they wanted to become the Bitcoin capital of the world.
Director of Tourism here in Abu Dhabi wants to make Abu Dhabi the Bitcoin capital of the Middle East. Dubai has the crypto capital moniker, and Abu Dhabi is explicitly wanting to make this area of the country the Bitcoin capital, and we can clearly see it with the enthusiasm today.
And this is why Abu Dhabi reporting that they bought $436 million worth of Bitcoin in Q1 is a very big deal. Back at Davos, Larry Fink was saying that sovereign wealth funds like Abu Dhabi were asking him whether or not they should have a 2% or 5% allocation to Bitcoin.
Other nations are going to go out and start their own strategic Bitcoin reserves in order to not be outcompeted by the U.S. or to be able to be in a position when the U.S. changes the hegemonic state. Larry Fink was at Davos recently, which, by the way, I've been watching some of the coverage out of Davos, which normally I watch it and cringe, and this year is no exception. I cringe also, but they've never had more pro-Bitcoin content than they had coming out of Davos. And Larry Fink is literally up there saying that sovereign wealth funds are asking him, should we do a 2% allocation or a 5% allocation to Bitcoin? They're not saying Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's a fucking piece of shit, Bitcoin's fake gold, internet money. They're saying 2 or 5%, Larry. What do you think?
If my math is correct, if the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund made a 2 to 5% allocation into Bitcoin, it would be worth $622 billion to $1.5 trillion. And that means that we're also potentially around the corner from the United States adding Bitcoin to its sovereign wealth fund. In the same interview where the United States announced its sovereign wealth fund, Donald Trump and Scott Bessent also announced that they would be monetizing the assets on the U.S. balance sheet.
Within the next 12 months, we're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work, and I think it's going to be very exciting.
And the most likely asset that they're looking to monetize? Well, my guess is Bitcoin.
Who knows, maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? We'll hand them a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion.
And if that happens, Bitcoin's price is going higher than Anthony Edwards dunking on Chet Holmgren last night.
Guard. Keep the ball moving. Edwards drives in on Wiggins. Oh, my. Anthony Edwards!
Two reasons I think this is possible. One, we already stockpile commodities, and we've done this for years with oil and with gold. Second reason is that Bitcoin would become the new oil and the new monetary asset that's tied to energy, which Abu Dhabi and the United States are both leaders in. This would allow the United States to inflate away its debt while stimulating a new economy. Listen to this fantastic conversation between Natalie Brunell and Luke Gromen about Bitcoin becoming the new oil.
If we go back in time to late 73, early 74, oil rose in price by 400% from October 73 to April 74. And there is an interview that was given on CNN International by the former Saudi oil minister, Sheikh Yamani, in 2010, in which he said there was a meeting of Bilderberg Group at this Swedish island in late 73, October 73. Henry Kissinger attended and said, look, the price of oil is going up 400%. Get on board. And it happened. And again, these are not my words. These are the words of the former Saudi oil minister on CNN 14 years ago. He highlighted that. And the point of the U.S. doing that was essentially to make the oil market big enough to back U.S. deficits, to basically recycle the flows back into U.S. debt, to basically fix the U.S. fiscal problem post-Vietnam War and after we left the gold standard. It basically put us on an oil standard of sorts. And when I thought back to that interview by Sheikh Yamani, in light of the Treasury report, which was really the catalyst for the rethink, and then the Paul Ryan point, and then Trump's point, in August where he said, hey, maybe we'll just pay off our debt with a little Bitcoin, which was a really odd comment. I started to wonder if Bitcoin is the new oil, that it's not, that it is Bitcoin is going to be inflated like oil was so that it will inflate stable coins, so that stable coins will buy a lot more treasury. Basically, Bitcoin going much, much higher. This Treasury report showed that stablecoin demand for T-bills would soar.
Acting like a good journalist, let's go back to the CNN interview that Luke Gromen referenced in 2010 with Yamani.
The 1973-74 Arab oil embargo, a response to President Richard Nixon's support for Israel in the conflict with Egypt and Syria. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger called it Arab blackmail back then. And that's where I started my interview with Yamani. Let's take a listen.
Well, that's a very long story. And the reaction of America for what happened is not a one reaction. They decided to raise the price of oil for 100%. And this is how they deprived OPEC from their strategical power. The Arab oil was meant, and I was behind it, not to hurt the economy, just to attract the international public opinion that there is a problem between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Unfortunately, money is very attractive. Members in OPEC, they love money and revenue.
Going back to reports at this time, you realize that Henry Kissinger and the United States government manufactured the price of oil in order to inflate away its debts. U.S. oil companies and the U.S. government had debt up to their eyeballs from the Vietnam War. So, what did they do? They increased the price of oil by 400%. Through power moves and negotiations, Kissinger increased the price of Bitcoin and made everyone else get on board. Sound familiar? Sounds like the type of strategy that Donald Trump would employ. And if you also go to the Treasury report that Luke mentioned in the interview, it talks about how the U.S. Treasury is correlating the price of Bitcoin to the amount of U.S. Treasuries that are bought through stablecoins. And the growth in stablecoins due to Bitcoin's price is tremendous. So you're telling me that the United States can simultaneously monetize their assets and increase the issuance of the dollar and their debt around the world? Sounds like a triple threat win to me. With the price of Bitcoin hovering around 100K, if its price were to be inflated by 400%, we'd see $500,000 Bitcoin in no time. And the other reason that I believe that this is a reality is because Bitcoin is the most pure form of monetary energy. But before we get to that, let's go to our sponsors. Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, allowing you to unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin. They just surpassed the $7 billion milestone mark of Bitcoin-backed loans that they've lent to tens of thousands of customers. Ledin has done this without losing a single cent or single sat of customer money. And you can look and see whether they have the assets that they say that they do, because they were the first digital lender to do a proof of reserves report. And they do this report frequently. The application process for taking out a Bitcoin-backed loan with Ledin is simple, and it takes just a few minutes. You'll also get liquidity in the dollar or your local currency in your bank account in less than 24 hours. Go to ledin.io/borrowing to start the process today. That's ledin.io/borrowing. Our other sponsor is the Bitcoin Way. They are one of the best in the world at helping you to take self-custody and protecting your generational wealth the right way, by removing your Bitcoin and protecting your private keys by removing them from third-party exchanges. Members of their team will walk you through this process step by step so that you can do this securely, privately, and confidently. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team by going to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. Bitcoin is a pure form of monetary energy.
So I think this is an intellectual thing I've started to think about is I don't want to sell Bitcoin for fiat. I want to sell Bitcoin for energy, right? Because at the end of the day, why is Bitcoin a good thing? It's because it's pure energy in monetary form. A dollar used to be worth that when it didn't have any other competition. Now there's competition. Gold is very heavy. I have some of it, not as much as Bitcoin, but again, same issue. So if Bitcoin gets to a silly value in energy terms, then I need to sell it and I need to own something, some sort of way to have access to primary energy. Is that, ExxonMobil? Is that, buying a power plant? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that much, but it won't be that I sell Bitcoin for dollars. I'm going to sell Bitcoin for some primary energy source because that's what I'm trading in. That's what I'm trading. If Bitcoin's worth, 500 barrels of oil today and 10,000 tomorrow, well, at some point, this is a little ridiculous. How much oil should a monetary instrument be worth? Maybe I should just own the actual energy itself because I've been able to get it at such a cheap price, relatively speaking.
I believe that Bitcoin is the best way for the U.S. government to monetize their assets, inflate away their debts, and tie currency to energy, like it used to be in the old days. And this is strategic because the United States is one of the, if not the leader in the world when it comes to energy production. And this is why I believe that it's a foregone conclusion that Bitcoin will reach $1 million per coin. And, oh, by the way, it's already done this from $0 to $10 to $1,000 to $10,000 and $100,000 where we are now. It's done this in the past.
When Bitcoin was $1, people are like, oh, will it ever reach $10? So that's 2 digits. And I was like, okay, reach that, probably crash back down below $10. And it went from $10 going up. Is it going to reach $100? 3 digits. And then it reached that, and then it crashed back down, and it went from $100 to $1,000, and then we repeated 10,000. Now we've reached 6 digits. So people are questioning, oh, will we ever reach 1 million? Of course we're going to reach 1 million. If it's reached 100,000, 10,000, and it's going to reach every figure pretty much. I don't think it's unreal that Bitcoin will be priced, one sat will be $1. If we're already at 1,500 sats is $1, it's just a countdown to when it's going to be one sat $1. Whether it happens in the next 5 years or 20, 30 years, I think it's inevitable. $1 million won't be the $1 million that it is today. So while Bitcoin's almost a race to the top, fiat is a race to the bottom. So I think that both sides are going to accelerate at some point.
Although this is a clip of J.D. Vance talking at an AI conference, it's a clear signal that J.D. Vance, like Henry Kissinger, is sending a message to partners and people all around the world that this is what the United States is going to be doing. And you can either get on board or you can get left behind.
The Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips. And let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you. And we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with a spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation. The screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation.
The United States is moving forward with an energy and Bitcoin-based policy. And this is why large nation states like Abu Dhabi and others are clamoring to get on board. I don't know about you, but when I recognize that I'm competing with sovereign wealth funds like the United States or Abu Dhabi, when it comes to buying Bitcoin, I feel like that I don't have enough Bitcoin. And that's a natural feeling, I guess.
And then on the advice for those that feel like they don't have enough, listen, I feel like I don't have enough. Sailor feels like he doesn't have enough. Nobody has enough Bitcoin, right? Like if money is your time and energy in an abstracted form, nobody has enough time and energy. I want to live forever, but I can't. And I think that's kind of like the dilemma that we're all served with in life is we love life, but we don't get an unlimited amount of it. It's the blessing and the curse. The fact that we all know we're going to die is what makes our life valuable in the first place. All right. I know I'm going to die. And it's for that very reason that I'm going to wake up in the morning and watch the sunrise. Is that for dinner, I'm going to have a steak and not cupcakes. Is that I'm going to fall in love, build relationship, prioritize others. That's why I value my life, is because I know my life isn't forever. If I was going to live forever, I'd go to the gym in 10,000 years. I'd get married in 100,000 years. I'd think about having kids in 1,000,000 years, right? It's the finite promise of life that allows me to value mine. And it's the same is true with money. If there's infinite amounts of dollars, how are you supposed to value your paycheck right now? But it's that finite promise of Bitcoin, which gives this duality that's so beautiful, is I'll never feel like I have enough. But at the same time, I'm able to really, truly appreciate the sats that I have.
If you're like the rest of the maniacs who believe that you don't have enough Bitcoin, then I suggest that you make your way down to the BitBlockBoom conference in Dallas, Texas from April 3rd through April 6th. Join hundreds of other Bitcoiners from all across the world who are coming to the United States' longest running Bitcoin conference. Hear from some of your favorite speakers like Parker Lewis, Marty Bent, Guy Swan, Bob Burnett, and me. And get an opportunity to meet some of your favorite Bitcoiners in real life, things like the Saturday Casino Night, where I'm going to be, and some of your favorite Bitcoiners will be as well. Get $100 off your all-inclusive ticket, BitBlockBoom.com, and enter the promo code BBB25 for $100 off your all-inclusive ticket. I can't wait to meet some of you guys down there, and I'm really looking forward to it. If you get value from these videos, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to become the new oil, or you're just super excited about Bitcoin being adopted by other sovereign wealth funds, and potentially the United States, well, like, share, and subscribe to these videos. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.